This means that we are now fast approaching the point of national decision-making. Then a couple of words on Finland and NATO. Finland's long-term partnership with NATO is close and wide-ranging. During the past months, the public support for NATO membership has soared in Finland, being now somewhere around 70%. Strong popular support has been expressed in extensive polling, which has been followed by thorough consideration and respective decisions by Finland's political parties. Actually, almost all parties have had their extraordinary meetings on the NATO topic now during the last months. Should Finland decide to apply, the accession of Finland would strengthen the security and stability of the Baltic Sea region and Northern Europe. Finland is a regional security provider and would further strengthen NATO as a future ally. From NATO's perspective, Finland holds solid democratic credentials that meet NATO's membership criteria and has a strong and credible national defense that is interoperable with NATO. We are convinced that Finland would bring added value to NATO. Our wartime strength of the defense forces is 280,000 troops, and the trained reserve is 900,000 men and women. Finland has many high-end capabilities, including a fighter jet fleet of F-80s, gradually to be replaced by recently ordered 64 F-35 jet fighters. In addition to Finland's strong partnership with NATO, Finland has a broad range of close bilateral partnerships in security and defense with NATO allies and non-NATO countries, and is a strong advocate of both bilateral and EU defense cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, Russia's invasion is also an attack against the entire European security order. The EU needs to continue to do its utmost to give Ukraine political, military, economic and humanitarian support and to receive Ukrainians fleeing the war. Here in Finland we have more than 20,000 refugees from Ukraine, and we are prepared to even a higher amount, 60 to 80,000 refugees. The fact that our partners have aligned themselves with European Union sanctions has made our response also stronger. The adoption of EU's strategic compass was a timely and welcome step. It's essential for the EU's credibility that we implement the objectives and actions set out in the strategic compass comprehensively. European societies might encounter increasingly active hybrid and cyber operations during the months to come. Therefore, strengthening our ability to respond to new and emerging threats is an essential goal. Thank you for this opportunity of addressing you, and maybe before going to questions and answers, I just want to also underline the important work that the United Nations, Secretary General Guterres and United Nations organizations are doing on the ground to help Ukrainians. We are definitely supporting the work of the UN agencies as well as the work of the International Red Cross, ICRC. And of course, finally, I have to mention that all those who have been trying to get parties together for finding a diplomatic solution, this work should be appreciated by all of us. Thank you, and back to maybe questions and answers.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Haavisto. I'm absolutely of the opinion that accession of Finland to NATO brings important additional value to the security of our region, Baltic region, but not only, but also for the whole area of NATO. According to the scenario, I'm supposed to give the floor to myself right now as a chairman of the delegation of the European Ukrainian Parliamentary Association Committee, but I will pass this honor to others. I just want to share quickly my personal remark that in 1999 I was secretary of the Polish negotiating team, and then I had the privilege to open our mission to NATO, and for a few months I was chairman of this mission, then I was deputy chief of mission, and now I see that I have a privilege and honor to welcome another round of enlargement and to welcome Finland as a new member of NATO. Having said this, I would like to pass the floor now to the AFET Standing Rapporteur on Ukraine, Michael Gall.
Ja, hyvää huomenta ja tervetuloa turvallisesti, hyvät suomalaiset ystävät. So, good morning and welcome on the safe side, dear Finnish friends. That is what I just said. And I'm glad that Finland and probably also Sweden are about to formally apply to a NATO membership. They have been very closely associated with the alliance and, of course, also been fully involved in the security and defense-related activities of the European Union. I think that now both comes together and we are getting a more comprehensive and compact setup in around the Baltic Sea. As standing rapporteur on Ukraine, I of course welcome also the support that Finland has given to Ukraine thus far and for the foreseeable future. That is definitely a welcome, but it is good to see how united we are in the European Union and in NATO alliance in opposing this unprecedented barbaric Russian aggression, this war of aggression that is by no means, by nothing justified and therefore requires a joint and persistent answer. I think this signal that comes from Finland and probably soon from Sweden as well is also a signal to the rest of the world that the West is not backtracking, that we are united and that we have the best intention to come out of this war stronger than before, because that is definitely the attitude of the rest of the world, to watch whether after Afghanistan and other setbacks for the West yet again would come out weakened and retreated, and that is definitely something that we need to avoid. We need to sustain and strengthen the zone of freedom and democracy, because that is what it is about. It's not about weapons. Putin is not threatened by NATO weapons or EU weapons. He is threatened by a Ukraine that succeeds to become a democracy and thereby poses the threat to his evil governance, how he treats his own Russians, first of all, but as he thinks he can treat the neighbours. And insofar, this clear answer also from Finland joining NATO is something that is a clear signal to the rest of the world. We are together, we are strong, and we will not backtrack. Thank you.
Danke Ihnen, Michel. And now let's start a discussion with the colleagues according to the list of requests. The first is Mr. Alexandrov from EPP.
Уважаеми господин председател, уважаеми господин министър и колеги. Днес, когато целият свят следи героичната борба на украинския народ за защита на неговата родина, в съзнанието ми изплува име на един велик финландец, на един герой на Финландия. Това е Симо Хаюха. Финландия има ценен опит във възпирането на руската агресия. Това символизира Симо Хаюха. Стоицизъм и усилия постоянни за спиране на агресията. И в този смисъл са и моите въпроси. Какво според вас е необходимо още да се направи, за да бъде победена режимът на Путин и да се постигне мир? И още, вие казахте, че Русия трябва да понесе отговорност за предприетата агресия. Тук историята напомня, че през 1940 година Съветския съюз, който нападна Финландия, бе изключен от обществото на народите и това е всъщност и въпроса ми. Не мислите ли, че вече е назрял момента Организацията на Обединените нации да вземе решение за изключване на Русия от семейството на народите? Благодаря ви.
Thank you, sir. Well, it's a challenge to cancel the Russian Security Council. Now let me give the floor to Mr. Hainavona from S&D.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and many thanks for you, Mr. Haavisto. It was an excellent presentation of the Finnish viewpoints, very valuable for us, and it's also, of course, important to us to understand the changing security environment in the northern part of Europe and the decisions which Finland and Sweden quite obviously will make during the next days. We know that Finland has been a very strong supporter of the EU's foreign and security policy and EU's defense and security policy. So how would you comment and evaluate the situation if Finland will be a NATO member country? Does this have some kind of effect on your attitudes towards the common security and defense policy inside the European Union? And then my second question is coming from the really critical situation in Ukraine and the need to support Ukraine in every way what we can do. One discussion here is already aiming to the reconstruction of Ukraine after the war. And here in the European Parliament there is quite much support to the idea that we ought to use these resources which are under sanctions and which have been confiscated from Russia and from the oligarchs, to use them as a mean to support Ukraine's reconstruction. What's your viewpoint here? Could we take these resources and make it available for the Ukrainian people to do the reconstruction after the war?
Thank you, sir, for raising these important issues. Now let me give the floor to Monsieur Bernard Guettard, representing Renew.
Monsieur le Président, je vous remercie, mais la question que je voulais poser vient d'être posée.
Thank you. Now let me give the floor to Mr. Reinhard Bütikofer, representing Greens.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, dear Pekka, it's an honor to have you as our guest in the Foreign Relations Committee. And I can only support your statements that you made in analyzing the situation into which the Russian unprovoked aggression against Ukraine has brought all of Europe. Russia's threat is indeed not just trying to eliminate statehood and sovereignty for the Ukrainian people. It is also, as you said, an attack on the entire European security order. And I also would reiterate your appreciation of the speed, determination, and unity with which the EU has responded. In a way, the great strategic mastermind, Vladimir Putin, has, according to the Chinese saying, lifted up a stone to drop it on his own feet. And in painting NATO as an adversary, he's now bringing NATO closer to Russia's borders. On behalf of the Greens, I can only welcome the willingness of your country and your government to join NATO. I think that will benefit both your own country and all of us. Let me end with asking a question that pertains to the European future of Ukraine. Ukraine, as well as Moldova and Georgia, have applied for EU membership. I think we should, as a union, grant Ukraine's request, even though we know that this will not effectively make them a member over a very short period of time. But it would be important, as far as I can see, to show a strong willingness to include Ukraine as well as the other two in the European family of nations. I would be asking you how that is seen in Finland and from the side of your own government. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to grant the floor to Madam Anna Fotyga, former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Poland. Madam Fotyga represents a constituency of the northern part of Poland, the Baltic coast, so I understand will be personally pleased to see the contribution of Finland to the security of the Baltic region. Madam Fotyga, Madam Minister, the floor is yours.
Dziękuję, panie przewodniczący. Minister, welcome once more to AFET. It is certainly a great pleasure to host you. We generally agree in all aspects with your presentation. We very much welcome the Finnish decision to join NATO, hopefully also accompanied by the Swedish move of the same kind. It is good to have this parallel. Certainly, as person of the north of Poland, I particularly welcome this, but also as rapporteur of and European Parliament rapporteur for Arctic, I look forward to further cooperation with Sweden and contribution of Sweden in this respect, taking into account also raising threats posed to global security by moves of Russian Federation in this region. Actually, Finland can be perceived as already now very much a NATO ally, although this partnership and credibility of Finland has been and still is so high that I think it changes a lot. And certainly NATO accession of Finland means changes to security of Europe. It's and probably poses one of the best responses of collective West to vicious actions taken by criminal vicious actions taken by Kremlin in Ukraine, but also in blackmailing the West by well-known proposals and pressures to neighborhood, to countries of my region, in particular, to Baltic states, Poland, Romania. But also countries like Moldova. So I very much welcome policy of Finland. We stay united. I would like to pose the question about Arctic, and please briefly tell us about your perception now in the context of war in Finland about security situation of Arctic. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Minister. You're absolutely right that the accession of Finland is a game changer, not only in the Baltic region, but also in the Arctic region. Now let me give the floor to Mr. David Lega from EPP.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you. A special warm thanks to Mr. Haavisto for taking the time to be with us in an extremely timely and important discussion. So I have brief questions, so you have more time for the answers instead. But naturally, this is of great importance for us as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, but also for me as a representative from Sweden. So I would like to ask questions, but if you could elaborate a little bit on the importance in your perspective of the safety guarantees or insurances in the discussion or debate making the decision from Finland, and also from a Finnish perspective, how important would you say is the cooperation with Sweden in this issue, and how important is it that Sweden follows Finland from your perspective? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Finally, on my list, there is a request from Mr. Reuten, representing S&D, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you so much, Minister, for being with us. And just a few minutes ago, it was announced by President and your Prime Minister that is actually going ahead this application, and you already secured the support of your citizens for your potential NATO membership. But rest assured also of our full support in this Parliament, because we think that it is not only defining for Finnish security, but it's also an important step in European history. Two brief questions from my side, adding to what the colleagues already asked. I will not double that. What security challenges do you expect to arise over the course of the potential application, and how will you counteract these? And how can the European Union, in addition to what you already agreed upon with the UK, help and play a role in enhancing further Finland's security during the accession process? And I wish you all the best and your government with the further process. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have additional request for the floor from Madam Alvina Lametsa, representing Greece. Sorry.
Ms. Lametsa, please press the speak button. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much, Mr. Haavisto, for joining us today. And I'm sure that we very much support your work here and hope that we can give you the assistance that Finland needs at the moment. I would also like to ask about the potential of different hybrid attacks and measures that Russia might now take that we are waiting for the Finnish application. And I'm wondering what kind of exact support does Finland wish for from the European countries in this threat? And I also very much wish a successful application of Finland to NATO, and also I call on all my colleagues to support Finland in this process. It's very crucially important for our security right now. Thank you all.
Thank you, Madam. And finally, there is a request from the left, from Malin Björk.
Tack så mycket. Jag ska prata svenska.
först och främst varmt välkommen till EU-parlamentet, även om det är via skärm den här gången. Jag skulle bara vilja säga att naturligtvis har både Finland och Sverige bidragit till den europeiska säkerhetsordningen och även globalt under all den tid vi varit militärt alliansfria. Vi har deltagit i fred- och nedrustningsförhandlingar. Vi har varit viktiga för diplomatiska ansträngningar, inte minst Finland. Och jag delar helt din analys utav Putins anfallskrig, hans hot mot demokratin, hans förtryck av både den egna befolkningen och krigsbrotten som begås nu utav den ryska armén i Ukraina. Och våra länder, Sverige och Finland, är syster- och broderfolk naturligtvis. Och i det mycket så tycker vi ju liknande. Men i detta med NATO så önskar i alla fall jag innerligt att vi väljer olika vägar. Och jag har naturligtvis full respekt för Finlands självständiga beslut och behandling om den här frågan med er säkerhetspolitiska framtid. I Sverige, er historia är delvis annorlunda naturligtvis i förhållande till Ryssland än vad Sverige ser också. Och opinionen ser också annorlunda ut i Finland. I Sverige så är opinionen mycket mer delad. Och den förändras naturligtvis snabbt i ett sånt osäkert och farligt läge som alla upplever Putin som. Men det har alltså inte förändrats lika mycket i Sverige. Och därför så föreslår att vårt parti i Sverige en folkomröstning. Och det här är någonting som jag tycker att vi kan tycka mycket här i parlamentet. Och jag tror att det finns mycket tyckare här. Men de man ska fråga om en så här viktigt beslut är naturligtvis folket. Vi ska ha en folkomröstning precis som vi hade kring EU-medlemskap och som vi hade kring EMU-frågan. Man måste ha en ordentlig debatt. Om man ska ge upp i vårt fall då i Sverige 200 års militär alliansfrihet, då ska man fråga folket i en folkomröstning och man ska ta den debatten. I Finland har ni valt att göra annorlunda och jag har full respekt för det. Om man tittar på NATO-beslutet, då skulle jag bara vilja säga att en säkerhetsordning i NATO som bygger på terrorbalans och kärnvapenparaply enligt mig gör världen till en osäkrare plats. Det gör en säkerhetslösning för Sveriges del som inte ger oss tryggare framtid. Och lägg till det att NATO-alliansen då har medlemmar som inte är demokratiska. Erdogan, Orbán och vem vet Trump i framtiden i USA. Så min fråga till dig är egentligen, har ni övervägt att istället för NATO välja samarbeten med demokratiska stater uteslutande och se hur det försvars- och säkerhetssamarbetet skulle kunna byggas starkare så att vi kan stå säkra och trygga, både Finland och Sverige, gentemot en allt aggressivare och farligare Rysslands och Putin-regim. Och den andra frågan är, varför tycker ni att det behöver gå så här fort? Från den svenska bedömningen, och som du säger själv så är det också det är ju inte ett absolut hot nu, utan vi kan ha en sån här debatt och diskussion och ha den process som skulle behövas för en folklig förankring. Så ni har gjort en annan bedömning och jag undrar varför du menar att det behöver gå så fort. Sen så undrar jag bara, och en fråga, du underströk själv vikten av diplomati även vad det gäller Rysslands olagliga anfallskrig mot Ukraina. Och då skulle jag bara gärna vilja, för det är ingen annan som har frågat den frågan, och ni i Finland har en stolt tradition av diplomati. Ni kan lära oss mycket kring det. Och jag skulle vilja höra hur du ser att vi skulle kunna förstärka de insatserna. Och sen slutligen så önskar jag dig välkommen tillbaka hit till parlamentet och diskutera situationen i Arktis tillsammans med oss. Tack ska du ha.
Thank you for your opinion, although I would say that I wouldn't like to see the European Hiroshima as a final argument for enlargement of NATO. It's better to enlarge sooner the better. Thank you, colleagues, for this debate, for the questions. Let me give the floor to Mr. Haivisto for his replies. I see that once again, commenting the last intervention, this is actually the end of the very long-lasting debate started many years ago by Max Kampelmann. and I see that his ideas raised 30, 20 years ago are coming to the reality right now. Mr. Haavisto, you have the floor for, let's say, 5-7 minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and first thank you for your own comments and encouragement for our decision. That is very much appreciated when you referred also to the earlier enlargement rounds of NATO and your support to the current ones. Also thanking Mr. Gahler for your comments, and I fully agree that our reaction, of course, is we think it's also a signal for our common defense and our common values in Europe that we have to also defend at this very difficult moment. Then to some questions, Mr. Alexandrov, thank you for your comments, and I really appreciate that you know in a so detailed way the war history of Finland when you took up Mr. Simo Häyhä. High appreciation for that. Your question was that could Russia be excluded from the UN work, and we all know the rules and procedures of the United Nations and the particular nature of the Security Council and the permanent members of the Security Council. But of course I really have to underline that at least two important decisions have been made already on the UN level. The first, the big voting of more than 140 votes in the General Assembly to condemn Russia's attack against Ukraine. I think that was a very good and timely reaction by the General Assembly of UN. And secondly, the exclusion of Russia from the Human Rights Council was also an important voting and decision in the UN. As you know, Finland is currently also a member of the UN Human Rights Council. Then Mr. Heinäluoma put a very timely question that how do we see the EU's defense and security policy. Finland has been one of those countries that has been strongly advocating the Article 42.7, and we have been thinking that it should be mobilized and it should be trained and it should be put to the reality even more stronger ways. And we know that it has been used one time when France was under terrorist attack, and Finland also supported France at that moment. But we think that there is no limits how the EU's defense and security policy should be developed, and we really appreciate all those efforts to do that. And of course the strategic compass is one part of the work. Then Mr. Heinäluoma, you also asked about the supporting of reconstruction of Ukraine, and Finland just pledged last week in Poland a remarkable sum of money for also reconstruction work. But it's a very interesting question. Could we use the confiscated resources from oligarchs to this reconstruction? And my only comment to that, I fully support the idea. My only comment of that is that since we are a rule of law societies, we have to do, of course, everything accordingly to legal procedures, but I think this is an idea that should be investigated. Then to my good colleague Reinhard Bütikofer, thank you for also your comments and encouragement, and I fully also want to underline, and I have been saying this always, that this crisis has really united the European Union, and we really appreciate that. Already the Belarus attack and mobilizing the migration against Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, we reacted strongly together, and now to the support of Ukraine, we have been in front line in many ways, and also through the European Peace Facility. And the issue of your question about the European future of Ukraine is an interesting question. I know that all our legal experts are saying that, well, we have the acquis communautaire and it's a long way and so forth. And I think we have been also discussing here in Finland, would there be some rapid moves that European Union could do, maybe not as immediately to the full membership, but on some sectors where we could strengthen our cooperation with Ukraine and make it more visible, this European perspective immediately. That would maybe be appreciated very much by Ukrainians as well. Then to Madam Minister Fotyga, thank you for your support. And when you mentioned the Arctic issue, of course, Arctic Council, the permanent members are 8. And now if 2 of them are joining NATO, if in my calculation we have then 7 NATO members and 1 non-NATO member, Russia, in Arctic Council. Of course, Arctic Council has been now postponing all its meetings. There is a Russian presidency of the Council, and it's not functional at the moment. But I still think that some of the crucial Arctic issues are linked to not only to security but also to the big climate change issues and climate topics. And definitely this is also something where I see a lot of role for European Union in the Arctic cooperation. So both security and environmental threats should be addressed. Then to Mr. Liga, you asked a very crucial question about the so-called security guarantees during this grey zone when you apply for the membership of NATO, but you are not yet a member. You are not protected by Article 5. Yesterday, UK gave a very strong statement by Prime Minister Johnson, both in Stockholm and in Helsinki. And of course, we have been talking to our EU friends that what kind of support could be, for example, to Article 42.7 in these circumstances give to both Sweden and Finland. And I think it would be very important to underline the solidarity according to that article, because that's in our mind something that is really existing. And of course, we are looking also close cooperation with Sweden in this application process, but also on security-wise, because we have a lot of common exercises, common military planning with Sweden, and also hopefully together we are strong here in the northern parts of Europe. Mr. Reuten also asked about what type of security challenges there could be. We are, of course, prepared for everything. We are not expecting anything, but we are prepared for everything. We are prepared for on land, air, maritime influences, and of course we are looking particularly careful all the hybrid and cyber means that can be used against us, and here again asking full support from European Union and European Union member states on addressing these threats. And to your question, how can EU and how can the countries help, I think this preparedness for all kinds of even surprises, so we should be ready for that. And Madam Malametsa, you asked a very particular question on the hybrid threats, and we have seen, of course, all kinds of GPS disturbance and electronic disturbance and attacks against our computer systems and so forth. And I think we should be, as European Union, even stronger to respond to those attacks. Madam Björk, I think you raised a very important topic in the end. How do we see our role as a peaceful nation, Sweden and Finland? How can we contribute to those topics also in the future, issues like disarmament and so forth? And I don't see any contradiction between the NATO membership and the goals to support the peaceful solutions in the world. In Finland, we have had this NATO option for years, I think something like 18 years, where we have said in our white papers that if the security change situation will worsen in the northern parts of Europe, we are ready to consider the NATO membership. We haven't had our public support so far to that, but this spring everything has changed. People feel the certain threats, people feel certain concepts, for example, use of unconventional weapons where your own military defense is not enough, and therefore you need a better cooperation. But I think your points at the same time support democracies and democratic principles and others. I really appreciate those, and I think that's also the contribution that Finland and Sweden can make in the future. And I just want to congratulate the past presidency of Sweden in the OSCE, our common organization. It was a very difficult time, but Sweden managed very well. And as you know, Finland is planned to be the chair or president of the OSCE in 2025. We don't know what is left of all that European security during the coming years, but we are really committed to also to work according to those principles and strengthen the European capability to keep this continent peaceful also through our common security organizations. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I hope I could address those key questions of honourable members of European Parliament. Thank you.
Yes, I thank you, Mr. Minister, for being with us. Mr. Congratulations for this historical decision. Usually we have a saying that people and countries are wise after the event. This time I congratulate you that Finland is wise before the event. So thank you very much, and please enjoy your stay in protection of NATO. Thank you very much, colleagues, for this debate. We will move in a couple of minutes to the next item of our agenda. Thank you.